protect themselves from the heat.
A new study has attempted to estimate the potential human
Professor Tim Lenton from the University of Exeter.
For example, the sky is clear and sunny. Hello everyone, this is Inggrid and the others. We are a bachelor students from English Department, Faculty of Humanities, Udayana University. This is a video project for intermediate listening lesson assigned by Mr. Nyomantri Ediwan. My name is Inggrid Keyzariahni, student number 116.
Hi, my name is Made Puspaningsih with student number 106.
Hello, my name is Putu Julianti. My three last digits of my student number is 109.
My name is Jessie Pamela Agata with student number 103.
Happy watching!
Hello everyone, welcome to our case report. Today we will talk about climate change. As we all know, these days the weather is unpredictable. For example, the sky is clear and sunny at this moment, but on the next hours, it is covered by clouds and a little bit windy. Schools in Spain are closed due to the hot weather. In India, this spring hasn't recorded the highest temperature worldwide. It's already established to have been made more likely by climate change. A new study attempts to put a figure on the potential human consequences for the climate change. Humans don't tend to like living anywhere too hot or cold. In UK, it is concentrated where the average temperature around 13 degrees. Meanwhile, in monsoon climates, it is average around 27 degrees. Partly, it is because we rely on fertile river deltas crops and livestock. As it is getting hotter, humans start to see the biological risk.
Professor Tim Lenton from the University of Exeter mentioned that the worst case is so hot and humid the body, so it cannot keep itself cool because it cannot evaporate sweat. This case is at the extreme. Before we get to the extreme, we can see that our brain function is degrading as we go to high temperature and high heat humidity extremes. He also mentioned about the disadvantages due to this hot weather, such as adverse pregnancy outcomes. Some performance of the workplace is degrading. Interestingly, even when people work in air-conditioned factories, it turns out there seems to be some correlation of the work performance with to how good the weather is or how hot or extreme the weather is outside.
Based on BBC's team, back in 1980, just 0.3% of people lived in areas with an average temperature of 29 degrees or more. As a simplified proxy for the many complex consequences of climate change, they look at how many people might be exposed to that level of extreme heat towards the end of century. The Paris Agreement set at 1.5 degrees of warming as the preferable limit of global warming. If it is surpassing the specified limit, 5% of the future population would be affected.
Significant populations in India and Nigeria, where populations are still growing, brings the outcome that is far from certain the most ambitious global pledges, which is take us much closer to 1 degrees of warming. But this study suggests each tenth of a degree we prevent could save around 140 million people from living in these extreme temperatures. Some areas will be able to adapt, like building cooler homes or just buying air conditioning.
Ready Kak Kosla? The associate professor of University of Oxford says that air conditioning demand and energy is expected to rise threefold up to 2050, which means an equivalent of 10 new air conditioners will be bought every second for the next 30 years. The implications of that for the environment are of course very damaging, because increased air conditioning use means increased electricity demand, particularly during peak times. Increased electricity demand, particularly if it is fast fueled by fossil fuels, means further emissions, and further emissions means higher global warming, more climate impacts, and further increase our air conditioning.
Although there are already some who can afford to protect themselves from the heat or who have to work outdoors, particularly in the global south country most likely affected. Ultimately, some may be forced to consider relocating.
Coastal areas.
The associate professor of Duke University, Sarah Bermeo, mentioned that the World Bank has estimated that over 200 million people by 2050 may move for climate-related reasons. In some countries like Bangladesh, there are some migration from coastal areas into inland cities. This migration caused by the sea level rise is quite pronounced in some of these areas. Look back to the devastating floods in Pakistan last year, which events like that are going to lead people to migrate. There is also in one of these areas where Professor Sarah have been doing her research in Central America, where smallholder farmers having to move because they've experienced drought for multiple years in a row.
The Horn of Africa has experienced consecutive failed rainy seasons since 2020, a pattern scientists found wouldn't have occurred without climate change. In 2022, the number of women in unaccompanied children migrating from the area to the Gulf states doubled. There's some evidence those affected by long-term change are less likely to return. This research then reminds us cold political debates about what action we should take will hold very real consequences for millions of people.
As sort, a new study has attempted to estimate the potential human consequences of climate change. The study found that at 2.7 degrees of warming, which is expected if the world sticks to its current policies, 20% of the future population, or roughly 2 billion people, could be exposed to extreme heat. This outcome is far from curtailed, with the most ambitious global pledges taking us much closer to the preferable limit of 1.5 degrees set by the Paris Agreement. However, its tenth of a degree we prevent could save around 140 million people from living in extreme temperature. The implications of increased air conditioning used to adapt to heat are also damaging for the environment and might lead to further emissions and increased global warming. The effects of climate change are already forcing some people to consider relocating, with over 200 million people estimated to move for climate-related reasons by 2050. The study reminds us that political action is critical in preventing real and devastating consequences for millions of people. Okay guys, that's all from us. Thank you for watching and have a great day. See you!
Closed in India. This spring has seen record temperatures worldwide, already established.